There we go. Thank you.
Thank you and hello. Welcome to this special online eco seminar hosted by Voices of Future Generations Children's Initiative and the Cambridge Schools Eco Council. Our focus today is on nature-based solutions to climate change and how we can protect mangroves and wetlands. I am Nico Roman. I'm 12, a Cambridge Schools Eco Council co-chair, Voices of Future Generations Child Ambassador, and King's College Schools Eco Society co-leader. Our other chair for today is Junaid Islam, also a Cambridge Schools Eco Council former co-chair, key organizer of students, climate strikes, and city council live-streamed Eco Council meetings. Our first speaker today is Rehema Kibugi she is 11 and a grade 5 student in Nairobi, Kenya with her mother. She lives in Kenya with her mother, father, brother, aunt, and 4 chickens. She loves writing stories, making art, and learning about history. She won the Voices of Future Generations Gold Award for her story, The Child Who Saved the Mangroves, to become a child author from Africa. Her book is about mangroves, forests, and their importance to the environment. Rehema's story tells how mangroves protect shorelines from damaging storms and winds, waves, and floods. It is illegal to cut, buy, or sell mangroves in Kenya. Her book proves that children have a voice and a right to speak against what they think is wrong. Rehema, do you want to? Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Rehema Kibugi. I'm 12 years old now, and I'm going to be talking to you about mangroves today. Mangroves are trees or bushes that grow along seashores and riverbanks. They're found in the coast, and there are 118 countries and territories and cover 137,000 square kilometers, which is the size of Greece. You can imagine how large the mangroves are in the world today, not Kenya, sorry. The mangroves can help reduce the impact of the environment caused by extreme weather. Mangrove trees are known as carbon sinks. They reduce greenhouse gases by capturing carbon dioxide and taking out of circulation. Mangroves protect shorelines from damaging storm and hurricane winds, waves, and floods. They serve as habitats for finfish and shellfish species and other animals. Mangroves are used to make charcoal, firewood, and furniture, houses, and boats. In 1975, Kenya introduced a law where logging mangroves was illegal. In Lamu, a small town on Lamu Island, residents argue, saying they have no other material to use. In fact, there were heaps of mangrove logs confiscated by the government. Lamu town, which is 700 years old, with coral lime houses, was made a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2001. That means that residents aren't allowed to make alterations to the buildings in town's old quarters. A section of Lamu's 300-year-old Jamia Mosque is unstable, meaning the worshippers are now forced to pray on just one side of it. Because of the mangrove bar, it can't be properly fixed. No other material can last as long as mangrove poles. I think that the government should help them build new houses and mosques because not many people can afford to start building their own. I believe if enough people can help their situation by supplying them with bricks, cement, and the tools they need to buy their homes, they'll be able to they'll be able to build homes and mosques and the places they need to live. My book, The Mangroves, talks about what is wrong. For people who do not live near mangrove forests, we can educate children about mangroves and why they're important. I have a friend who had no idea what mangroves are, and after she read my book, she understood what mangroves are and how they help and help the environment and how they help us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to announce, or I'm very proud to announce, and I'd like to congratulate Rehema for her book, Children Who Saved the Mangroves, and congratulations for launching your book. I'm pretty sure today is the day we're going to be launching the book, and anyone can buy it on Amazon. And it was illustrated by the Justine Greffield. I'd also like to thank her, and congratulations, Rehema, for your new book. And we really hope that everything goes well. I'd like to move on to Thomas Langford. Thomas studies in King's College School, Cambridge, and is an eco-counsellor on Cambridge School's Eco Council. During the pandemic, together with others, he formed the Heron Project team, where he won the Rotary Young Environmentalist Award for a project on enhancing wetlands and greenhouse gas emissions sinks. So, Thomas.
Good afternoon, I'm Thomas Langford. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Today I will talk about nature-based solutions, mangroves and wetlands, and in particular, protecting our fenlands to combat climate change. Cambridge, where I live, is a small city in the midst of the East Anglian wetlands, known to us as fenlands. Fenlands are one of the most carbon-dense environments on the planet, which, if protected, reduce flooding, support diverse life systems, and capture and lock in CO2 from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. The wet conditions of fenlands stop the plants from fully rotting down, trapping CO2 which otherwise would be released into space. Peatlands in general store approximately 3.2 billion tonnes of carbon in the UK. The treatment of these fenlands is critical. Left undisturbed, they are a carbon sink, but farmed they are an immense carbon and methane source. Research shows that fenlands do not always act as carbon sinks. The fenlands themselves must be maintained as healthy fenlands. The National Trust Wicken Fen, for example, which is a local protected fenland, demonstrates within it both carbon sink and source. One of their fens, Sedge Fen, is uncultivated and is a carbon sink, whereas another, called Baker's Fen, has been farmed, which disturbed the carbon, releasing it into the atmosphere and making it a carbon source. To keep unprotected fenlands healthy, they need to be kept wet to prevent erosion, which releases carbon into the air, to be planted appropriately with, for example, reed and sedge, and for wildlife areas to be created to encourage and protect the ecosystems. It is greatly important to ensure that the water flow in fenlands is free from obstruction from the likes of litter. Reducing litter and replanting the fens are areas which the community and local councils can help once the awareness of the problem has been raised. There are community organisations which are currently working to promote restoration projects across our county and beyond, such as the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. The UK CEH is working with the government to monitor CO2 emissions over a 2-year period, resulting from different levels of water within the fenlands. Their work so far indicates that when the water levels are raised, it improves the quality of the soil and cuts back CO2 emissions. This important work should be promoted as widely as possible. The UK government has compiled a strategic wetlands action plan to support the UK's climate change programme, and the EU's LIFE funding has assisted many wetland restoration projects. Such projects are a cheaper alternative to other methods being used to reduce greenhouse gases and, what is more, have the happy benefit of increasing biodiversity and enhancing the precious wetland ecosystems. Government action is not enough, though. They should be organising more ways to stop climate change, to raise awareness and financially encourage people to change their habits to support the fens. Litter pickups are free, for example, but have a big impact on our planet. Researching how to keep fens as carbon sinks led me to how fens are farmed and farming practices in general. Across East Anglia, soil in the fens, when drained, is extremely rich and fertile, and so has been heavily farmed for food production. Our fen farms produce 1/3 of the fresh vegetables farmed in the UK. Traditional farming practices require a machine to cut into the land, churning up the earth, destroying the delicate ecosystem of worms and roots, and, importantly, releasing the carbon stored within the carbon-rich fens into the atmosphere. Some local Cambridgeshire farmers that I interviewed follow the method of cover crops and direct drilling. This entails planting shallow-rooted seeds such as clover and winter peas, which take nitrogen from the air back into the soil and block weeds. When planting the main crops directly into the covered field without ploughing or cultivating the land. This reduces the need to pass over the field multiple times, which would otherwise use a lot of diesel. Farmers using this method are reporting a reduction of at least 50% of their diesel usage. With this method, the soil structure is maintained as it is only disturbed at a shallow level, allowing the worms and plant roots to thrive and create healthy soil as well as keeping the carbon locked in. The cover crops reduce the need for chemical fertilizers and provide food for grazing animals such as sheep, who in turn provide further manure to fertilize the land. The farming community, however, needs more government assistance and incentives for farmers choosing organic and conservation farming methods. Members of the public need to be made more aware so that customers can choose from more climate-smart local food providers. Fens are a crucial weapon in this climate war. Our planet has provided the means to heal itself if we in turn take steps to protect them. Please help to spread awareness that fens are not just a wonderful place to spend time in, but that they are also working hard to undo the damage we are doing to our planet. Small steps taken by individuals make as much difference as big steps taken by government. Let's start now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Thomas. That was also a clap for Rehema. I'd next like to introduce Lillian Mowaki Mugi. She works for the Marine and Fisheries Research Institute in the Department of Fishery and of the Government of Kenya. She holds a Master of Science in Environmental Science degree and is a world expert on mangroves.
Hello, Nico.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Should I go ahead? Say something?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm operating on the phone. Yeah, out of power. Yeah, so as he's introduced me, I work in the mangroves. I've done so for the past almost 10 years. What are mangroves? Mangroves are the trees that grow between land and sea in the tropic and subtropic areas. So mangroves are important for us because they protect us from the sea when
Is it just me who can only hear stacked?
Yeah, she's breaking up.
Yeah, for me, she's completely breaking up. Maybe turn off your yeah. Yeah, maybe you want to just slowly and clearly and just turn off your camera. It's fine. We just, it's better we hear the words you speak than your beautiful face.
Thank you for the compliment. I only had the beautiful face. Okay, I'll proceed. I'll try to speak slowly now. So I'll start over. Mangroves are the forest that define between land and subtropical areas. So I'm based in Kenya, this along the equator, and we are fortunate to have wonderful mangrove forests around here. So these forests are important to us in that they.
Sorry, I'm afraid you're still cutting off a bit there.
Maybe you want to. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go to our next speaker, and then we can come back to you when you have a bit more of a secure internet, if that's okay.
Okay, but let's try to connect somewhere else because I don't have many options. We're out of power, so I have to use a phone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll try and reorganize that. I'd like to next introduce Andrea Wilson. And with her, Andrea loves to read and write, learn about science and math, and play soccer, football. She won the Voices of Future Generations Gold Award for her story, Sarah's Journey for Tomorrow, to become the child author for North America. She lives on Lona Island and attends the Greenvale School. Her book tells the story of a girl named Sarah who wants to clean the world of garbage and pollution and invents a machine to turn garbage into energy. Andrea intends that her book educates people about the issues our planet faces and motivates them to make a difference, just as Sarah did. So, Andrea, would you like to take the stage?
Yeah, do you want me to talk about the wetlands and stuff first or the book?
Probably the wetlands and then the book, if that would be good.
Okay, yeah. Although climate change is the most dramatic change to Earth's climate induced by humans a long time ago, during the dawn of mammals, Earth underwent a similar yet greater spike in temperature where greenhouse gas levels and water level. Climate change is an issue that the Earth itself can solve, just like it did millions of years ago, but that process takes time and would likely happen long after the extinction of humans. Meaning, it is important to acknowledge that such an unnatural problem can't just be fixed by natural solutions or man-made solutions, but a combination of both. Natural climate solutions are practical and expensive ways to remove carbon from the air while still preserving the land. Natural solutions are vital because instead of simply preventing the worsening of climate change, they pull carbon out of the air and counteract climate change. The first and most obvious way is to protect, restore, and regrow forests. Trees remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and can store that carbon for long periods of time. A healthy tree removes 13 pounds of CO2 per year, but the death of a tree, along with certain funguses and insects, often results in the release of the CO2 back into the atmosphere. According to a recent study, planting 1 trillion trees and actively replacing the ones that die would cancel emissions. However, 1 trillion trees requires a lot of space. To be precise, the land area of Asia, Europe, and Australia, or 42% of current land. Due to these shocking results, we must turn to other solutions in combination with forests to tackle this huge issue. Regenerative agricultural practices known as soil carbon sequestration are ways of managing farmland so that soil absorbs more carbon. One of these ways can be accomplished by reducing how much the soil is disturbed by using no-till methods or planting perennial crops. Tills tossing around the soil, loosening it, and pulling weeds from underneath. But this process allows the CO2 trapped in the soil to be released back into the environment. Simply not tilling prevents this, but planting perennial plants whose roots reach further down and come back every year provides stability of the soil and alleviates the work of planting every year. Another way to provide soil stability and reduce use of pesticides is to plant cover crops instead of letting the field fallow. Fallowing is an ancient method used to create a plot's fertility by plowing it but not planting any crops in it for 1 or more seasons. By planting cover crops, by planting cover crops which prevent weeds and hold in soil, less pesticides will be used and the soil will remain healthier. The last way is to use compost and crop residues on fields, which can capture CO2 from the environment and help counteract climate change. Wetlands such as mangroves, tidal marshes, peatlands, and seagrasses, known as blue carbon sinks, hold between 20 and 30% of global soil carbon. However, the destruction of over 1/3 of these wetlands at 2 to 7% annually results in the rapid release of stored carbon and acceleration of climate change. By protecting and restoring these wetlands, we can help reverse climate change. Thank you.
Okay, do you now want to talk about your book? And then, yeah, and then I'll congratulate Rehema and you. Yeah.
Do you want me to like talk about it or am I reading it?
Yes. Just talk about it. I'm guess. Yeah, just talk about it.
Okay, so my book Journey for Tomorrow is about this girl Sarah who she grows up in the Florida Keys and she has this like dolphin friend. And what happens to the dolphin? They play every day together. Her parents died when she was young, so she's an orphan and these are like her best friends. And one day she finds the dolphin with a plastic kind of like piece cutting into its head. And she sees this and she's inspired to go on this mission to like rid the planet of plastic and kind of like cleanse the earth. So she sets on her mission and she goes around to all these different places on land and in the water and she collects the plastic and she used this machine called a transformer and she puts the plastic in this machine and the machine creates electricity out of the plastic. So she's solving like energy issues and allowing clean energy, like renewable energy that's not made from fossil fuels, which helps climate change. And she's helping to like stop pollution and the big amount of garbage that's all over the world. And she travels from continent to continent. And while she's there, she cleans up a city while also cleaning up a gyre, which is where all the garbage kind of gathers. There are these circular currents of wind and water that collect everything. So that allows her to like gather the garbage at a very fast rate. And while she's going around, she inspires other people to kind of clean up too, and she leaves them to do that. So she basically creates this big movement, creating awareness and inspiring people to do the same thing as her.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Rehema, do you want to say a quick words before I congratulate you guys both again and declare your books? No.
So, I really want to thank Lillian because she's the reason I wrote this book. She showed me the mangroves in Diani, which you'll also find out in the book when you buy it. So I really want to thank her for that and for being able to come and speak. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I was wondering if, oh yeah, there we go. So those are the two books that if you look online, you should find. I would like to thank the two illustrators, Vicky Zhang and Justine Greenfield, for their brilliant illustrations. And I'd also like to congratulate the authors for their first book in hopefully many, and declare the books launched, so that you can go on Amazon, type in really quickly, buy 10 copies, give to all your friends, probably like hundreds of copies because everyone has hundreds of friends. Yeah, so thank you very much, and again congratulations to you guys. Everyone should go read your books, so that's at least 55 people who will go and buy the book. I'd next like to welcome our final panelist for today, Darlene Coyle. Darlene is a policy project coordinator, Canadian Youth Biodiversity Network, Associate Fellow, Center for International Sustainable Development Law, and holds a Master of Environmental Science degree specialized in wetlands sustainable management. So take it away.
Yes, thank you, Nico. Hi, everyone. I'm going to do a very basic overview about wetlands, my favorite ecosystems, and nature-based solutions. So to start off, what is a nature-based solution? Whenever someone asks me this question, I can't help but think of this tweet by Elon Musk, who offers $100 million to anyone who can come up with the best carbon capturing technology. And some cheeky lad by the name of Ross Gerber replies with a tree. And this is very much what nature-based solutions are all about. It's using natural processes that have been going on since before we even walk this earth to protect us, our homes, wildlife, and pretty much anything that relies on a healthy environment. Nature-based solutions are basically actions that we take to protect, restore, and sustainably manage ecosystems, like Andrea said before. You can kind of think of them as the opposite of a man-made solution, like whatever carbon capturing technology Elon Musk is talking about here, or even something as simple as a seawall. And nature-based solutions very much embody the 3 pillars of the Sustainable Development Goals because of their ability to address social, environmental, and economic challenges together in one. And wetlands are very commonly associated with nature-based solutions because of their ability to do just that, address social, environmental, and cultural economic challenges together. But first off, what is a wetland? I'm pretty sure that there's one type of wetland many of us are familiar with, but a swamp is just one type of wetland, and there are so many different kinds. In fact, the Ramsar Convention on the Importance of Wetlands uses the broadest possible definition of what a wetland could be to include any area, whether it's natural or man-made, permanently or seasonally wet. The water could be still or flowing. The water could be fresh, salt, or maybe somewhere in between. And this definition is so broad, it even includes marine areas, as long as it's not deeper than 6 meters at low tide. So that's broad enough to include areas like coral reefs, which is pretty neat. Wetlands can also be used to address several problems that we're seeing now, though. For example, wetlands are very well known for their ability to capture and store mass amounts of carbon dioxide, which has already been talked about a bit, which gives them the name carbon sinks. As you can see from this picture here, we have 3 different wetlands. We have mangroves on the left, salt marshes in the middle, and seagrasses on the right. And together, these make up what are called blue carbon ecosystems. And as you notice from these red arrows, carbon dioxide isn't just being stored in the plants, but also the soil themselves. And as you'll notice from these small black arrows here, that some carbon dioxide is being released into the atmosphere, which is normally not a very good thing. We tend to avoid that. But as long as they're not disturbed, as long as we just leave wetlands alone, they store way more carbon than what they're releasing. Wetlands also protect our water. Because they're so absorbent, when rain falls, water gets pooled into these areas, which can help if a community is close by, because instead of flooding our streets, they can kind of just pool into these areas. Depending on the soil content underneath these wetlands, water can even trickle down and replenish our groundwater, which billions of people around the world rely on for their main source of drinking water. Some of you may be even drinking groundwater. As for the water on the surface, well, that can get evaporated to start the water cycle all over again, which can really help in areas experiencing more frequent droughts. As sea levels rise and storms become more intense and frequent, our coastlines and our coastal cities are becoming more at risk. Man-made solutions like seawalls, for example, are struggling to keep up with this change. They're getting damaged, it's getting costly to repair, and it's just not very sustainable at this point. However, mangroves have an incredible ability to act as a buffer. I really hope this video will work, but if not, it's okay. As you can see from this video, rough waves are coming in, they're hitting the mangroves. Mangroves are able to absorb that shock, that force, and leave the water on the other side quite calm, which can help prevent erosion. And this process of absorbing that force from the mangroves is called attenuation. This might be a new word for some of us, so let's say this together. Attenuation, attenuation, attenuation. Last, I'm going to end off with by saying that nature-based solutions have the ability to address several problems at once. A mangrove that's helping protect our coastlines is also capturing and storing mass amounts of carbon dioxide at the same time. I feel like there's going to be a few future sustainability leaders in this room, so I'm going to give a little pieces of advice. It's incredibly important when doing these types of solutions to talk to the local community. Understand how these ecosystems are important to them, and understand how changes to that ecosystem can either positively or negatively impact them. It's also important to understand the local environment when doing these kinds of solutions, because not all wetlands can survive in all areas around the world. Nature-based solutions have the potential to protect unique ecosystems like wetlands, and maybe even provide more space for them as our appreciation for them grows. If the authors haven't already convinced you of how great wetlands can be, I think these 2 episodes might get the job done. The first one is Bill Nye the Science Guy, who I grew up watching. He's amazing. He has an episode on wetlands. And then our younger crowd might enjoy the Magic School Bus, who has a great episode on swamps. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. That was a brilliant speech. Now, she had a bit of internet problems, but hopefully her internet is a bit better now. I'd like to re-welcome Lillian Wahaki Muki to the stage to see if she has a bit of a better internet connection and we can hear her without it going all static. Lillian, do you want, maybe if we turn off our cameras, that might make it a bit better.
Okay, thank you, Nico. I hope it's better this time. I'm also glad I had the hitches because seems it's been well covered by Andrea and the speaker who just came before me. Thank you, much better now. Thank you, Alison. Yeah, so maybe just to affirm what the speaker before me said, mangroves are part of the wetlands and they play such an important role. I've been working in the past few years mostly on their role in climate change mitigation, and I can confirm that they do so much in capturing the carbon and storing the carbon. So I don't want to repeat and bore you with much of the science, but I want to talk about the role of young people like we and what we can do in conserving the mangroves that we have. And I'm glad to have met Rehema and she introduced me to this world of children who are willing and yearning to learn about conservation. And so I'd just like to encourage all of us that many things we can do, even if we don't have mangroves in our areas or other wetlands, but we can contribute to their conservation in many ways by spreading the word and also by contributing to conservation activities that are going on in these countries, especially where there's not so much maybe resources to take care of the mangroves. We have different nature-based solutions that we are trying to engage the communities to undertake. And by promoting this, we are able to promote the ecosystem, which as much as we don't have in our countries, does contribute to our well-being wherever we are in the world. So I'll invite any questions. I feel what else to talk about has been well covered, and I don't want to start repeating what has already been said. Thank you, Nico.
Oh, thank you very much. That was an awesome speech. I think it was well awaited. I'd first like to thank Thomas Langford for his speech, which was also amazing, and Darlene Coyle for her speech, and Lillian Moaki Mugi for her speech. They were all really amazing and by far some of the best I've seen. So I'd like to now hand over to Junaid for any questions to the panelists. So yes.
Hi. Okay, so if you have any questions, please do just go down to the Q&A box icon down below and type in your question. Okay, we've got two at the moment. First one, is it better to grow plants at home or at farms? Anyone want to take that question?
I could.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel we can contribute to this world in very little ways and in big ways as well. So if you have a farm to grow your plants, go ahead and grow them. But if you don't have a farm where you can grow this, do it at home. It's good for your for the air in your home. So it's good in that it reduces the air pollution around you. And when you grow it in a farm, at least it is less maintenance, and maybe it's in its natural environment, and so it does much better. So let's keep it green wherever we are in the big and small ways that you're able to.
Okay, this next one I think is probably going to be directed mostly to Darlene and Thomas. Do all wetlands store carbon, or is it just specific wetlands?
Well, all wetlands contain carbon all wetlands contain carbon because wetlands are decaying plant life and plants contain carbon. So yeah, they do. They are.
Yeah, it may be that some types of wetlands store more carbon dioxide than others, but yeah, all of them, because of that, as Thomas said, the dying plants will always contain the carbon dioxide. I don't know if Lillian has stuff that she wants to add as well.
Yeah, I could add and say that the reason why wetlands store more carbon is because of the water does not allow much oxygen into the ground. What happens in the terrestrial ecosystem is that there's aeration of the soil, and oxygen is needed for decomposition. So where there's a lot of oxygen, the dead plant does decompose. But in wetlands, the story is not the same. It's anoxic, and so there's not enough carbon. And so what happens, the organic matter in that soil just ends up being stored and does not decompose. That's why we have more carbon in wetlands. And yes, all wetlands do store carbon.
Okay, next question. I think this is going to be mostly directed at the child authors in this room. How do we encourage children to take action?
I can take this one. You have to make sure the child is taking action for something that person likes. I personally like mangroves, and because I had interest to them. You can't force someone to like trees or flowers or things like those. You have to make sure that they like what you want them to take action for. So if mangroves are being, yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I think Andrea might have something to add. I'm not sure. Is if Andrea's there. Okay, questions.
I'll just add education is really important to encourage action, not just for children, for young people, but for everyone. We need to make sure kids are made aware of how important our environment around us is and how important the climate crisis is. Next question, where are wetlands mostly located? Where are wetlands mostly found?
Darlene, do you want to take that?
Sure. Wetlands can be found everywhere. Like every continent has wetlands. It just depends on the type. Like I'm in Canada, and I'm kind of in the middle of Canada. And so we don't really have coastal wetlands. So we're not really going to see many mangroves, but we have a lot of marshes. We have a lot of swamps. Just get to know your local environment, the climate, temperature, that kind of stuff will all depend on the type of wetland that's around you.
And yeah, I know here in Cambridge we have our lovely chalk streams and our fens. That's our wetland. Got some questions from Marana. What are some ways we can bring about change in our local communities?
I think we can kind of start talking about them more. So a lot of people, we have this idea that wasteland, or traditionally we have this idea that wetlands are wastelands. They're just not doing anything for us. And so traditionally we've drained them, paved over them for other practices. And so I think it's part of talking about what makes them so great for us on their own. We don't need to do much.
I would like to add to that, we can also come together in different organizations, whether that be a committee, whether that be a council or society, just to bond over the fact that we all have this in common. And yeah.
Which is why you should all join the Eco Council.
Yep.
Next question, where do wetlands form? So I think maybe this might be more specific, like do they form in high altitude, low altitude, like near the coast? Where in the continent do they form, perhaps?
I can kind of talk about this one. Maybe Lillian has some stuff that she wants to add too. Wetlands can be formed. We can make wetlands too. Rice paddies is an example of a wetland that's been made by us. It's basically a ditch that collects water. They can be made or developed naturally, literally anywhere.
If people have more questions, please do send them in. I might just ask a question.
Yeah. I think we do have a question. Another one. What are all biotic elements are present in a wetland? Lillian, or yeah.
Nico, I'm not sure I got that one. Could you please come again?
Oh, yes. What all biotic elements are present in a wetland?
It varies with the type of wetland and where it is situated. So if I talk about the mangrove areas, we find, of course, the mangrove trees, and we have different species of mangrove trees, and they also occur along regions. So in our region, that's the West Indian Ocean region, we only have 9 species of mangroves. And in the world, we have over 100 species of mangroves, but they don't occur in all areas. So the Atlantic has its own kind of species. The Indo-Pacific has its own kind of species. And when you talk about fauna as well, it varies with the different areas as well. So I hope I've answered that.
Yeah, I can kind of give some examples. So in Ontario here, we have lots of species. We have salamanders, lizards, frogs, we have ducks, we have like a lot of types of species that enjoy these areas.
I think please do type in any more questions you have. In the meantime, I have one question myself. So nature-based solutions can often be infamous as a go-to greenwashing element, where companies will say, well, yeah, we're taking out coal and burning all these fossil fuels, but at least we're making some trees, we're planting some trees. That makes us okay. So I'd just like to ask, how do you think we can make sure people don't use nature-based solutions as a way to make themselves feel good, and more as a way to actually encourage change?
So on their own, nature-based solutions can have a part in the solution. They're not the only solution. So there are other aspects that, or other actions that we need to be taking. Reducing our impact is a big part of that. So if a lot of companies are doing what are called offsets, and so they spew carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but it's okay. We're gonna build a wetland. We're gonna plant some trees to try to offset those emissions, which is part of it if it's really difficult to just cut back. But I think the main action that we need to be taking is to reduce in the first place. We have our 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce is the first one that always gets overlooked.
I have a question. This is mainly to Rehema and Andrea. Maybe Andrea wants to answer this first. What inspired you to write the book or write your book?
So for my book originally, I think it was like a contest thing. But for the actual idea of the book is that like a few days before that, they had kind of had this like presentation on like plastic and stuff. I was like pretty little, so it was kind of impactful too. And I feel like it'd be impactful to anyone. And there was a bunch of pictures of like there was a pelican with it had like its stomach cut open. They were showing like basically like how much plastic and no fish, and it ended up dying. And then there was also like a sea turtle that was like had a bag around its neck, and it just kind of like gave me the idea to write about like pollution and stuff. And also the climate change thing was something I had just kind of learned about too. So it all kind of played into it.
We got a question from Muhammad. Would you animals live in wetlands?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. What was that question?
Do animals live in wetlands?
Maybe Thomas wants to answer this one. Sorry.
Well, in England, loads of like birds live in them, as like herons and things like that. Yeah, quite diverse. Herons are the main one which I know live in them. Oh, and loads of fish and some frogs, I think.
I think Lillian is typing an answer to that question. Does anyone else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, you can kind of think of these wetlands as their own ecosystem in themselves. You have migratory birds that will hop from wetland to wetland. Others are getting from place to place. Lizards and salamanders and amphibians can use these as breeding grounds, as homes. This is like, they will hop from little vernal pools, if you want, to live their whole lives in these things. So they may not stay in one specific wetland, but they might kind of hop around a little bit.
Yeah, I could add to that as well. Mangroves are very important for the commercial fisheries in our region because they are the nurseries and the breeding grounds for most of the fish species, which also transition again to the seagrass. Yeah, but for things like prawns, for things like crabs, we have mangrove crabs that you only find in the mangrove areas. We have birds, we have gastropods, the snails that you find in mangrove areas. So we have, yeah, and as I've noted there, we even have huge animals like the tigers in the Sundarbans.
If anyone has any more questions, please do just type them in the designated area.
Rehema, do you have anything? Yeah. Oh.
Oh, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
You asked a question about what inspired us to write the books. I didn't answer. I can answer now. I think it's because at the time when I was writing a book, I was reading lots of books. I discovered that reading was fun, and I used to spend most of the time reading chapter books. So when you find books are interesting, I had this inspiration to go and write about something. The thing is, I didn't know what I wanted to write about. So when I met Lillian and she showed me taught me about mangroves and how they help the environment, I wrote about that, and here we are.
I would have another question to ask. I think I might direct this at Darlene, but if anyone else wants to add anything, they can. I don't know if you have this in Canada, but in our area in Cambridgeshire, we have this thing called doubling nature. So companies who want to like develop in our area over like green spaces, they'll say, okay, we'll develop here, but then we'll invest money to make designated like green spaces elsewhere, and then over time those places will develop, those green spaces will develop, and eventually be double the amount of green space that we built over. Does that hold up to scientific scrutiny?
What part are you talking about holding up to scientific scrutiny? Like the overall number or like amount of carbon emissions that were, or are you talking about the green space specifically?
I guess a bit of both, yeah. Partly like they have to like there's like certain laws that they have to make up for the carbon dioxide loss, like carbon dioxide increase that they'll cause through developing on the area, and also through like the loss of green space that they'll cause.
So in Canada, we don't really have too many of those laws at the municipal level. It's mainly on their shoulders, the city's level, to designate in their planning laws a certain percentage of green space. So if a new development project comes into the city of Toronto or something, for example, I'm pretty sure it's something like 30% of the plan needs to include 30% of green space. And they can do that either making like an urban park type situation, or you can just have like a field. It's also about the quality though, because we do see these traditional practices of building a park and it's just manicured lawn. And that's not what we're talking about. That's not a nature-based solution. A manicured lawn is not going to do the same thing as a forest will, for example, or a wetland. Having a very naturalized area will not do the same as a lawn.
So if anyone else wants to add anything to that before you move on to the next question.
Yeah, I think we should just move on to the probably the final question, if there aren't any more questions. And then you can thank people and all of that.
So this is from Kande. How can people get involved?
Can I take this one?
Yeah.
So people can get involved through seminars, like raising awareness, so telling it to people you know, and through councils and competitions, mainly.
And I'd like to add to that schools. Schools can be a real key part to getting people involved in the not the battle, but what we're doing so far. Yeah, so you can form like eco clubs and eco societies, and work with everyone in your community to try and solve local issues, and that will help worldwide. Yeah.
If anyone else has anything to add, so I think Rehema has had his hand up, and I've been told we can allow them to talk to ask their question. I'm getting shakes. No, okay. All right. In that case, unless anyone else have any questions, I think we'll move to closing round. Okay. Thank you for coming. There was a very interesting, very fantastic talk we had here. Thank you to every speaker who spoke today. I learned a lot about mangroves, wetlands, and fens. Thank you to everyone who made this possible, and especially Nico for helping chair this, especially Sarah Sandras for doing all the technical stuff behind the scenes to make this possible. Please keep an eye on our social medias. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and we have an email address. keep in touch with us for our next eco seminars, our next actions, our next eco challenges, and hopefully our next eco strike, our next school strike climate. And hope you have a lovely day. Bye.
One quick thing. I'd first like to thank Junaid, and then I'd like to thank Kiara and Alison for their help, also behind the scenes, but also here present. I'd also like to congratulate again Rehema and Andrea for launching their books today. And I'd also like to thank Darlene and Lillian for taking time out of your day to come and speak to us today. I'd like also to thank the attendees, as we truly have a global outreach. I think from every single continent except for Antarctica. And I'd like to, and also everyone is invited to do the eco challenge, which is to make a plastic a sculpture out of plastics from about a size of a Grammy. Which if you can send us a photo, that would be amazing. Yes, thank you very much. I hope to see you all very soon for our next eco talk, which, yeah, thank you very much.